Okay, now, from the beginning.
Become the best instructor you're meant to be.
Exercise for a sense of community.
Founder and CEO of TRX.
You've done that. You've won somebody over forever.
Hey everyone, and welcome to our Wednesday We Speak series here on our AFAA channel. My name is Katrina Pilkington, and I am going to be discussing a topic that's very close to my heart when it comes to group fitness with my friend Shalaine here. But allow me to just do a quick introduction of her so that we can know what this amazing human is doing in the world of fitness and about her session at Optima. So I know that you all just saw the teaser video, which I just saw for the first time. It was brand new. But registering for Optima is easy if you go to nasmoptima.com. It's going to be between October 13th to the 16th. And we have an amazing array of speakers, including Shalaine, who will be speaking on October 15th at 9:45 a.m. And we're going to dig into her session. But just a little bit about my friend here. Shalaine McLaughlin has been a fitness instructor for over 10 years, teaching Zumba classes amongst other multiple group fitness formats. I know her as an AFAA master instructor leading workshops with group fitness professionals, learning how to do the group fitness thing in person and now also online. She is currently studying for her NASM, CPT, and CES certifications, which we know those are very fun. And she's also presented for FIBO USA as well as at the Zumba convention. It is her passion to help educate and inspire people to become more active. And she holds her Bachelor's of Science degree from Cornell, as well as many AFAA instructor certifications. So welcome, friend.
Hi, how are you, Katrina? Thank you for having me on here today.
I'm great. I'm so excited to discuss this topic of your session with everyone. And just to keep our audience informed, everyone can feel free to type in questions, comments, ask that we will try to touch on at the end of our episode here. But the goal with this series on Wednesdays is just to speak with different leaders, team members, community members in our world of fitness on both the NASM and the AFAA side. And today we're going to focus on group fitness. So, Shalaine, how's everything going with you?
It's been good. You know, it's been adjustments. So instead of teaching people in person, which I love and miss dreadfully, it is a new virtual world. Right. And I'm so excited about Optima Online because it's opening it up, this amazing conference for people all around the world. So last year I went and I had to spend money for airfare and hotel, and it was amazing, but I did have to spend a lot of money and you know, cancel everything for a month. And now everybody can do it online for a very nominal cost. So it's an amazing opportunity. My session is going to be about something that Katrina, you and I both love, is queuing, because queuing helps set our participants up for success.
Absolutely.
So it's not just about telling people what to do, but it's about letting them feel like they left your class achieving their goals. And, you know, one of the things that is really hard as instructors is to cue on time and to cue effectively. So I try to make my sessions pretty fun and, you know, a little more interactive than just me talking, because that's boring.
I would have no other expectation of a session with you other than fun. And I know for myself, it's funny because I came from the world of NASM first from like a decade ago. And then I hopped into group fitness, which I found I was able to translate the two. But the biggest difference was queuing, and queuing a group of humans, not just one human at a time. So I know that this will be a really informative session.
this session actually is for personal trainers and group fitness instructors,
Good to
or
know.
personal trainers who lead small groups. I've been teaching group fitness for 10 years in all different formats. My love and my start was in Zumba. And it was funny because when I first started doing the AFAA exam, I went to take the test, and people had told me, don't wear your Zumba wear, which we always, the Zumba people, they wore all crazy clothes, right?
Right.
we always got into really the colors and all sorts of fringy things, and it was pretty funny. So I did that, and when I went up and led the class, because our AFAA exam back in the day was the PGE, was the primary group exercise certificate, and I was so nervous. Like, I had only been teaching Zumba, I had only taken Zumba, and I didn't know, like, was I really a fitness professional? Was I not? Yeah. And after I took the PGE, I was like, you know what? I'm a fitness professional. I can do this. I love this. This is something that I love and I have a passion for.
Right.
And Katrina, you didn't mention this, but I don't know if you know, but I came from an investment banking background.
Oh, yes. I did see that. I was going to touch on that.
I literally went from the trading floor to the gym floor. So that's a little, like, funny thing.
It's so funny that so many of us came from this corporate environment. We're like, I want to wear all the brightest colors in the world and stand in front of people and work out because this is so much fun. Who wouldn't want that?
Yes. So at the time, I couldn't imagine at all how I would be able to translate from having this very corporate, well-paying job to doing something that I love with my whole heart.
Right.
And 10 years later, it happened. Like 10 years later, I am doing fitness full time. I am blessed to be, speaking at Optima and at these fitness conventions. It's like a dream come true. I'm like, pinch me,
And you're translating a lot of what you've done, I'm sure, in your past corporate environment into what you're doing now. It's like all of your worlds get to collide, which I love to say. So
yeah. So I love the fact that people who constantly learn, like people who attend fitness conferences like Optima, are constantly learning and filling their cup. And you never know, like, who's that actor that said you never know what kind of tool you put in your toolbox, and he had some crazy role as whatever, like a jazz singer or something.
Right.
And you never know what in your background will translate to your current job.
Right.
And that makes you you. That makes you the unique instructor. And I talk a little bit about that in the session. It's just like an aside, but it's kind of talking about your group instructor voice, like the voice that you present to the class, and what is that? What is it? And it kind of just gives you some questions to ask yourself to think about later. But basically what I did was, through the session, I was thinking about common errors that I would see people do in class. Like really common things that I see all the time. And how do we address them? But in a fun and exciting way that people will then, listen to you and
they gravitate towards that. Yeah.
So I'll give you an example. I'll give you a sneak peek. Can you see this?
I was like, don't give the whole thing away, because
I'm not giving the whole thing away. No cow. Oh, there you go.
There you
See
go.
this?
I see
So these are my top 8 coaching cues. Sorry about the ring light, y'all. But all of you guys knowing this. So you see all of these top 8 coaching cues. What do Ice Cube's, Beyonce, diamond necklaces, double chins, railroad tracks, lemurs? What do these things have to do with cueing? Are you excited?
I am, and I know you, so I'm like excited and terrified at the same time, but in the best way possible.
So basically, each one of those will address a postural distortion, or a safety issue, And I talk about what a lot of people currently do. So for example, a lot of people say hollow your core or engage your core, right? What is another fun way of saying that that's memorable and exciting? And I give a whole bunch of different examples, and I talk about cueing, not just the alpha cueing that we talk about in Group X, which I refer to as well, but kind of intrinsic and extrinsic cueing about how, you know, like how does it feel versus how does it look versus how to motivate someone, you know, to say what is something that they'll relate to.
Right.
So I try to give imagery cues. That's my big one. So those are all images that I, you know, shout out at people in my class all the time, and people, you know, then they get it. You know, they get it because then we talk about it.
Yeah. I think what you said was really important. Two things. I don't want to forget what I was going to say. We'll talk about confidence in just a second. But I think the biggest thing that I always tell trainers and instructors, which is something you touched on, is yes, you have what you've tested on and what you want to know to keep your clientele and your students safe, right? But it's also about finding your voice and finding your personality in a way where people don't come to class for class. They come to class for you. So how do you put a fun spin on things? And I think that's something I really respect about your approach, is that it's really fun, it's really interactive, and it helps people gravitate towards you, not necessarily the workout, because that can seem like the tedious part. So what is your, maybe without giving away the whole session, what is your top tip for finding your voice? I know you said this, but without giving the whole thing away.
So the thing is, your voice has to be authentic. It has to be something that's true to you. And if we look at ourselves, we are different people in different situations.
Right.
You know, if you're at church versus you're at the club versus, you know, your family dinner, like all of those different situations involve a different face of you, aspect of you, because we're like diamonds, right?
Right.
So coming out as an instructor, how do you find that voice for your class? Like each class is going to be different. My Zumba class looks totally different from a bar class, you know, or a Tabata class or boot camp, you know. So what is it? Who is your audience? And, you know, how do you then relate to them? So part of the instructor voice is really kind of networking. So coming back to my business background, you know, we did a lot of networking. So I was in sales. I was sales on a trading floor. So it was very crazy and very intense. And the thing was, we were selling the same thing that other people had. And the price was maybe off by a little bit. But the way that you got people to buy from you was because they liked you and trusted you. Right. And so how do you build that trust, and how do you connect with these people, right? But in a really sincere and wholehearted way. Right. And that to me is all about group exercise. Like we are connecting with our participants. I don't go in there, show up, do my thing, perform, and leave.
And it won't come back.
They won't come back. I mean, you'll get
some
some
online too, right? You know, like it's finding a way to relate and build connectivity, even though we're spatially distant, I like to say, but we're still socially connected. People are going to listen to your cues. If they feel like they can relate to you, they're going to get you more versus being told what to do, because as humans, we're going to sometimes reject that authoritative nature, right?
Yes. And the thing is, also with cueing, it's really important to cue to correct.
Absolutely.
So when you are cueing somebody, you don't want to cue them to say you're doing this wrong. So this I talk about this in the session, and I do a whole like experiment with it, you know, like example where you guys are doing something, but when you tell somebody they're doing something wrong, their mind just starts spiraling and going down somewhere else.
Human nature,
And then you have to grab them and pull them back to you and focus on you. So as instructors, when we do for Zumba especially, and we do like going this direction and all of my students start pointing, I love that. I think that's amazing, because that means they are connected with me. You know, they're mirroring me. So nothing more exciting as an instructor and being with someone than having somebody mirror you subconsciously. So that means you got them. You have them
Right.
with you. And
Right.
that's money. That's clip right there, right?
Yeah.
So how do we do that? One of the reasons that we don't do is tell them what they're doing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
We tell them what we want them to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really big tip that I'll talk about throughout the classes.
Right.
But that's a huge takeaway. If you're cueing somebody and you're saying to someone, "Oh, don't do this,"
Right.
think about how can you cue them to do what you need them
Right.
to do properly.
Positive
give
cueing
tons of
is so
examples.
important. Right. Yeah. It's important because especially in the virtual world, and I notice this when I do panels, when I do clientele or work with clients and students, it's so hard to see what somebody's doing in the computer. And you can't really necessarily do much more than give a motivational and positive cue in order to help drive the behavior to get to a certain place. Because nobody, and I used to say this in my group fitness instructor workshops, is that you're not going to necessarily correct all behavior in one class. It's going to be in the course of so many classes. As you take time to build rapport, then somebody's going to be like, oh, it clicks. I get it. Right?
Yes. And it is a lot of steps. Like there's a lot of things for people to remember.
Yes.
The big thing that I always talk about consistently is kinetic chain.
Yep.
And if you don't know what the kinetic chain checkpoints are, you need to take an AFAA group workshop that Katrina and I both give.
Yep.
And we go over all of them in detail, and it is key to keeping your participants safe.
Right.
The other thing that you were touching about is the fact that, you know, we want them to kind of be excited that they're doing the right things.
Yeah.
So if they aren't doing everything perfectly, it's okay. As long as they're better than they were before, they're doing good, you know, like they're doing great. So you really need to be specific with your praise and be like, that's a great job. You kept your knees apart, or I see your knees are in line with your toes, you know, good job. So whatever it is that they're doing well, tell them, not just be like, you're doing great. You know, that's like, whatever.
I know.
You know,
great doing what, right?
And the other thing is you can ask people if they're doing something. And then if they say yes in their head, then they're all excited. You're like, you know, are your knees behind your feet, you know, toes, whatever. And they're like, yes, oh, I do good, you know.
Yeah, like leading them to the answer versus giving the
Yes.
answer. Absolutely.
You know, have you engaged your abs or whatever it is that you want to ask them?
Right.
Is your head in line with your spine?
Yeah.
You know,
and that's
whatever
important.
it is, then give them those little checklists that are like, yes, I'm checking off those boxes. I'm doing great in this class.
I know. I notice that mostly when I teach children or when I teach my little one or when I teach kids that, you know, especially when they're in the I don't want to say odd development years, but when their bodies are just going through so much growth and their bones are out of the alignment and they don't even know it, giving positive cueing can help transform that development habit to where things are a lot straighter and more aligned versus saying you're not doing that well. Who's going to want to continue to do a movement if they just never feel successful?
Right, exactly. So ultimately, our client success is our goal, right? So how do we get them there? And it's not through critiquing, sadly.
Right.
I'm an Asian mom, so I helicopter, and my kids are like, Mom, why do you do this? You know, and I'm like, I can't help it. But then actually, my participants think I'm super fun and great, you know, loving and, you know, but it's funny. So then I have to retrain to think myself, you know, yes, not just what can I do better as a person, but, you know, what can I do better as an instructor?
Right.
And that's something that I constantly work on myself.
Right. One thing I wanted to not forget that we talked about earlier that I wanted to touch on was confidence, because I know for myself too, like teaching my first in-person and also my first online class, and online can sometimes be super stressful, but having confidence, and I used to say fake it till you make it and just try to get people to like you, is so key, because I feel like we always are down on ourselves thinking I'm doing this wrong, I'm not teaching this correctly, but our participants really don't know. They know what they see and what they gravitate towards. So if you had to just give one tip, and let's maybe think about virtual because that's what we're experiencing now, Shalaine, is like, what is one tip you'd give as a group fitness instructor or as a trainer to enhance confidence or just come into a session or class with more confidence?
So if it is something new to you, like Zoom or whatever platform you're on, it's okay to not be perfect. Like that is, it's absolutely okay not to nail it every single time. And we set unrealistic expectations of ourselves as instructors to say, oh, my class has to be, great, all the way across the board. And it's not a bad thing to strive for, but there are things out of our control, like internet speed and connectivity and platforms and mechanical failures and music failures. So we have to just learn to adapt and move on. Laugh, and if your students really catch you in it, laugh about it and then go on. And then if not, just smile and then keep going on. Like the show must go on, just keep doing it. The thing is, I always tell my students the same thing. It's like, why do you think you would be able to, dance or be in this great form, same as me, when you just started? Or you don't do this every single day and you're not a master instructor or an instructor. You know, like, give yourself empathy.
Have grace.
If you would say this to somebody who's your friend, would you say to them, oh, you really suck because you didn't do this right?
I know.
Not supposed to say that. You wouldn't say things like that. You would want to be encouraging to them. And I would encourage you to allow the same for yourself.
Yeah, I love that. I usually always say things like perfection is not the goal. Practice is progress. It's not perfection, especially right now. And sometimes I would teach a class. I've taken a yoga class. I've taught classes and my little one is running around or my computer shuts on accident. But that is helping others to assimilate with you. They feel more inclusive when it's somebody who's like, oh my gosh, they get it. They get that I'm going through this too. My kids are running around or my issues are technical. I don't understand how to work this Zoom or video platform. So it's okay to be imperfect. And I feel as if a group fitness instructor or a trainer is going to have more relatability to their audience when they aim to be authentic versus aiming to be perfect. I love that. So true.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Be you. And I say be the best version of you whenever possible.
Right.
But yes, you have to be you. So unless you can be Batman.
I know. I don't think that's possible. I feel like Superwoman most days, but I just don't wear a cape, and most of us don't.
Yes, those capes, they get caught in all sorts of stuff.
And your session is on October 15th. I know that our our awesome producer has put up the session time, October 15th at 9:45. I remember this one to attend Shalaine's session. And just a side note.
Only an hour.
Yes, it's only an hour. But also, side note, for those attending, I get this question all the time. Many people are overwhelmed thinking, I'm going to sign up for Optima. I can't sit there and watch all these sessions in succession live. You're going to have access for 30 days after the fact to be able to take this content and still be able to absorb it. I feel like it's actually beneficial versus when we were in person, we all got distracted and we weren't learning. Like we were just busy networking.
And you know what? It is true. So my 25th college reunion, I know, I look okay. Still 25 years college was this past year in June, and it was all virtual. And I packed my schedule. My Google Calendar was like, packed full of stuff. And at the end of the weekend, my brain was literally about to explode. And I was so zoomed out. Like I literally couldn't even look at my screen. And now I have to go to glasses because I've been staring at the screen so much. But it's okay to take a break and even just listen. Listen and put it on your phone. Like the kids nowadays, they have it on. My kids are doing virtual school. Yeah. It's an adjustment. So my daughter will have something playing and she has the earpods in and then she's doing something else. And then whenever, it's kind of okay. It's okay to figure out if something is really grabbing your attention and you are getting something from it and then replay it. Right. It's amazing.
Adapt and pivot. That's the two words I'm using for 2020, especially as we continue to be fit and still learn. And to your point, I feel like with Optima and attending your sessions and our sessions, I forget that I'm speaking, our sessions at Optima, you're paying for the continuing education that you still need no matter what for the 2 years, but you're not having to pay travel. You're able to watch and listen for 30 days. It's just a very, very big opportunity to take advantage of, and it's advantageous for our learning to take it in small doses.
Yes.
We do have a, go ahead.
Like, how are you going to get 2 years worth of CEUs for like $200? Like, that's crazy.
Just join us, right? We do have one question, Shalaine. I know we'll just sit here and talk all day. Thanks, Matt. The question is maintaining the 5 kinetic chain checkpoints. Do you feel there's one in particular that's compromised in group exercise, or does it depend on the type of workout? I'm going to let you answer this one first.
All right. So,
because you teach many formats, and I think going from vertical to horizontal can change things. I don't know if you agree.
Yes. So I teach a lot of seniors, and for seniors, I constantly work about shoulders. So a lot of people have this upper cross syndrome where they are hunched over, and that is very dangerous when we are working with any sort of weights or balance issues. So that one, for me, I work a lot for trying to keep people's shoulders back.
Yeah, I just did it myself.
Watch. In regular group exercise, where there's a lot of movement, I always check for knees.
Yes.
So one of the things that I talk about is knees are a dummy joint. So they go wherever your ankles and your hips tell them to go. So it is, when we talk about kinetic chain, it literally is a chain. So we have the
absolutely. There's a foundation.
One thing, yes. So if you have one thing out of whack, if you keep doing it, it's like a spiral. It goes excessively worse and worse and worse. And then you train your body to have these maladaptive kind of movement patterns. That is detrimental to your health.
Right. And I think working in the corporate environment, I'm sure, well, you probably had more upward movement than I did. I sat at a desk for a lot of years of my life and still try to make sure I stand up now. But understanding that the general population may have a lot of seated issues, and a lot of that has to do with posture and also the knees. So keeping an eye on that. And when you talk about cueing, I think it's very important for folks to understand that if you understand that about your general population, then yes, you're going to cue towards the positive, but knowing that up front can help you understand what you're going to see on the computer.
Yeah. And another thing with people who are seated, I have 2 seated classes a week virtually on Zoom, and they're just half an hour. And I always try to figure out how, which is very difficult as an instructor with them being seated, how do I get their hip flexors stretched, and how do I work on their posterior chain?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's something that we always have to think about too as well. It's like, okay, if they're constantly in this position, then how do we work on them for all of their corrective type of...
Right. If you know this is something that's going to be ongoing.
Yes.
It's typical.
So the CES is great. If you guys have not taken the CES modules, that's a good one to sign up for.
So much learning. And I think we have one more question before we stop hanging out for the day on the AFAA channel. Hi, Whitney. How to be more relatable and connect and cue to a class of different participants of different skill levels of different personalities? Good question.
All right. So great question, Whitney. The thing is, when you're teaching group exercise, most likely you'll have a huge gamut of really experienced people and then really not experienced people. And that's okay. So you kind of sometimes have to teach towards the middle, but I always offer options. I always start and teach the base. So foundations, teach foundations. If they get the foundations, your front row divas are going to add things to their foundation movement.
Or that movie
don't worry about them. They'll get to it. They'll be turning before you turn. And that is okay. And then you can just point to them and then like cheer them on.
Yeah.
But
always to the middle.
Teach to the kind of more to the middle, low end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Then every so often throw in some sort of fun, and that'll be, the little spice, like you have to do a little bam, and that's your bam.
Right.
But the whole class can't be bam because
no bam all the time.
Not all.
I think that's a good
all, no.
point. And to your point, again, going back to building rapport and building connectivity and finding that common ground, I always say that to create more diversity in the fitness realm, which is what I'm speaking about at Optima, not to crash your party, Shalaine, but is about finding common ground with all of the folks that you teach. There's something that everybody has in common. It's just finding that so that you can then understand how to cue to the point where they just receive the cue as like a loving directional instruction versus it being any kind of authoritativeness. It's finding those commonalities that every group has. So I know you're great at that.
And every group has that commonality. So if you are telling somebody, oh, are you doing this, and letting them check it off, they're okay to know, like, oh yeah, I'm checking that one. Oh, I'm checking this off.
Right.
So even if they're not and they know it, it's okay.
Right.
I love what you said about finding common ground, Katrina. So one of the things that I love to do is to take fitness across the world. And one of my friends started this nonprofit organization called Move to Empower. And I went to Africa and India to teach group exercise and to encourage people to become group exercise instructors. So that was something that, they can start off and do very easily and earn money, because a lot of women don't have any other opportunities open to them.
Right.
They don't know what else they can do, but if they can dance, they can teach dancing, they have a way to earn income. And that would not have occurred to them.
Right.
Know?
That you can make a living having fun.
Yes.
We did
and
it.
So, and in addition to that, we also then, would give these fun classes where they, like you and me, like what got me hooked on the group exercise is forgetting for an hour what my issues were. Right.
Making that a comfortable, welcome place.
Yeah, that was my zone, like that's my meditation almost, right? Because I'm so focused on the class. Right. But to give them that and to give them the opportunities. But while I was there, especially in Africa, which is really interesting, I went to Kenya for almost 2 weeks. And we went to 5 different schools, but one school we went to every single class. And I did this whole segment. I was like, we also did other stuff. So some of the other group exercise instructors were nurses, and so we did all different things according to what our background was. And I said to them, I don't know what else they would want to learn about. So then I was like, are they interested in learning Chinese? Like I would teach them Chinese. And then they're like, yes, this will be great. And I'm like, really?
Right.
But it turned out that there was a lot of construction by the Chinese in Kenya. So all of the infrastructure was being built by Chinese people. And I didn't just talk about teaching them a few words or not, but I really talked to them about finding common ground. Right. So the first thing I would tell them is, okay, this is something we all love to do as Chinese people and Africans. What are the similarities? So maybe our buns look different, our bread looks different, but we love to eat with family, and we love to, be together and celebrate holidays and whatever, what those things look like. And the thing was, I had to not just teach them Chinese, but I had to teach them that if they were aware of and appreciate different cultures, that's how then they can break those barriers. Right. So one of the kids breaks my heart. These kids are brilliant, by the way, and so good. Like, I love all of them. Yeah. And this one little girl said to me, you know what? Those Chinese people don't hire us. And then I said, you know what? Eventually they're going to have to hire people in Africa and Kenya. And guess what? Would they hire somebody who knows something about their culture or somebody who didn't?
Because you have to have that connection. And that's the thing that all of us have to understand, is that when we have diversity and we learn from one another is how we can have that connection for sure. So I appreciate you sharing that, Shalaine. Thank you so much for
sorry, it was totally different
opening up our world. I know we could be here all day, but we have a window. That producer Grant knows that we stayed in our window. So I appreciate you.
It's also Chinese on a Mid-On Mood Festival tomorrow. So
nice.
I know
we'll celebrating. I'm half Chinese. Yes, absolutely. I know.
So my daughter made
so much from meeting our team. I love this.
Yeah. So my daughter made mooncakes from scratch.
Good for her. She's
which is a big thing because we couldn't buy them here in Sarasota, Florida. So it was like a big thing. She had to make them, and then they have to sit for 3 days before you can eat them.
Yeah, I remember that.
So
yeah.
it's kind of one of those things where I'm like, and then she's like smacking my hand.
That's what kids do, right? But don't forget, so Shalaine,
correcting us.
I know. Shalane's session, October 15th at Optima. Get registered today. We will see you there. I have 2 sessions. Shalaine has one session, yes? And we will be seeing you guys virtually. We look forward to this event. And thank you so much for joining me here for our We Speak episode. Shalaine, have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Thank you